All right. So, our starting point on this talk was some insights that you had, and then we dialogued a bit about it
Yes.
through the end of the week there about attention and about social media to some degree, but and also you mentioned porn.
Yes, I
Porn is a
did.
problem. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So having thought about this, we got some people joining in now. Having thought this over, what do you what do you believe to be the starting point?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, honest. So the genesis of me thinking about this has been the like good. I would guess I would call it good natured and well-intentioned articles out there about pornography and its impact on men and on culture, and thinking about it, I was trying to understand more, and something you and I do often as mental health professionals is sort of the first causes and the factors that drive certain behaviors, and both genders would work together in this. And so when you look at adult content pornography, it takes two to tango. Really, it takes um, men viewing it and incentivizing it with their money, their ad space, all the different things that go into it, and it takes women making it and aspiring to look like the models on screen, right? And I would expand that to OnlyFans, and I would say um, there's a real incentivizing of looking a certain way, and sort of turning love into lust, and getting women addicted on physical based attention. And I know you're going to riff on the good form of physical
Yeah,
based attention in courtship. The real McDonald's sort of Mick dopamine version is you set up shop on your Instagram or OnlyFans or pornography, and you maximize showing yourself, like maximize your beauty, get the angles that look right. Um, Things I think most people would understand as the tactics, and pull in attention. And for men, it's going to be, uh, subscribe or be the guy who can get a model like that or whatever. And it's very interesting because it can sour the pot for both. And so I want to be very clear. I'm not saying people don't aren't adults and can't make the decision to go into adult films as an actor or creator or whatever. No, I'm just thinking, what is the larger scale issue with attention being a currency, and on a wider scale making it an audience view of your sexuality versus just a one-on-one. And I think we have to ask, what is necessary to live? Our ancestors didn't have massive amounts of sugar daily. We do. Our ancestors didn't have massive amounts of attention for attributes. We do. You could set up an account and have attention on level of Cleopatra as a modern day woman at 18 or 19, and many have been told to go into that field. People will say that thinking that it's empowering as
oh,
well. So we have to look at, well, so attention can be very addictive to people who haven't had it, and who maybe when they've matured physically, that gives them something to be noticed for. I mean, Jonathan Haidt did so much research showing that for girls, I mean, there's pressure to conform that goes into looking like the models. There's
right, right,
normalizing people valuing you just for that. There's early sexualization is a huge issue. Um, there's body image issues that go along with that. Heavy's the head that wears the crown, right? If you want to be the most attractive, you better keep it up. You better get plastic surgery. So I think we look at pornography as an addiction and what it does to men expecting women that looks that way. We have to also look at, how does it sour the pot on men expecting certain things and women expecting certain things that are promised by the specter of social media. And as we talked about, it goes back to Jonathan Haidt as well. It goes into the anxious generation. He's very well tracked that girls who spend more time online social media have poor body image.
right.
And there's so much reason, boys that get hooked by games and pornography. So I think we have to take that perspective and walk into it very clear-minded. Also, by the way, there's been speculation that Hooters is going out of business because women who would have worked there can now create an OnlyFans and not serve the wings, and can instead just serve their looks and receive
Huh.
tips. So there's lots to think
Wow.
about on that front of where attention is going and the
Wow.
transactional nature of love. So that those are my
Yeah.
thoughts for now.
My goodness. Well, that's a lot.
Yes, it
All right.
is.
So pay me for my appearance.
Yes.
It's not even pay me for my presence, pay me for my appearance. I don't know how this fits in, but maybe you could pick this apart a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Would you
Okay.
believe that I am not friends with, I do not contact, I do not communicate with, but I know a male porn star.
Okay.
And yeah, and I won't say who it is, but it was a very lucrative male person. And
Sure.
I met him in LA when I was doing trainings way back in the day, for men and women on love and romance. And this person happened to be in the mix in the crowd and noticed what I was doing and was like, "Hey, you're teaching people about love, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "I am so and so, the famous, not the
Uh,
one you may be thinking of, not the old, very overweight one that you're thinking of, but not that.
I'm not making any
Somebody
assumption. Yeah.
somebody younger." But
Okay.
what was weird about this, tell me what you think this means. What was weird about this interaction is, he loved the idea that people were teaching psychology in terms of what bearing it has on love, romance, compatibility, and things like this. He just like wouldn't leave us alone. And then
Right.
finally, I mean, after like an hour of him saying, "Hey, can I like watch what's going on here?" After an hour of this, he's like, "Hey, would you give me a job?" And I'm like, "Whoa, no, no, I would not." But it was weird to be asked for a job by a
Right.
male porn star, and kind of sad, right? In a
Yeah.
way, like, well, not in a way, definitely sad, that that's your career, that you
Sure.
have to do that. And I mean, what did it point out to me? It just pointed out that no matter what your biologic sex, it's so easy to fall down into a pit of obsessing about how do I get something I want, or whether
Yeah.
it's love, or how do I be more attractive? Well, why don't you stop and think, why do I want to be more attractive? Oh, well, because I want more dates. Well, is that really it? Or is it you want love and you don't feel loved? I mean, so anyway, this person seemed very lonely, and also not very employable either.
Mhm.
So yeah. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts
No.
there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So my thoughts on that would be, I mean, maybe this person, I've met some real male romantics. Maybe this person was someone who thought that that field was one that was somewhat romantic. I'm not sure. We know that it's not typically considered to be that. It's more, it's like acting. Maybe he was very fascinated in gender dynamics. I mean, what's very interesting that you may notice. So, when it comes to OnlyFans, when you said, I like what you said, pay me for my appearance, not even my presence. OnlyFans is more popular than regular adult content to some because of something called a parasocial relationship. So, what that means is that
Hmm.
you basically are engaging in a relationship with the person. You can request content, you can talk to them. Like our audience right here, we have a
Yeah.
parasocial relationship with people who come on here and talk to us. They get to feel like they're
Right.
communicating with us. And
Which they are.
which they are.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
absolutely are. And so, but we're not saying we're their real therapists full time and they're close friends. They know that we're online personalities who care and that can be asked
Right.
questions and we have a wealth of knowledge to share. So the OnlyFans, it's like, well, this is like a digital girlfriend part time who knows how to be very inviting and hospitable and fun. Have you seen the new Blade Runner 2049?
I did. Yeah.
It's very so the Joey character is very much what an OnlyFans girl can fall into of kind of this, except she's
Huh.
far more a girlfriend. But I'm trying to think of a good
Yeah.
analogy. There's basically this, I'm there as the almost like an anima on command for men, like a feminine presence, but that you
Huh.
watch on command. And I
Yeah.
think so women there's reports now of women, some women creating like AI dominant boyfriends that talk to them semi abusively in a dominating way, kind of like an interactive
Hmm.
50 Shades of Grey. So, and I mean, and
Ah.
these are articles that are out there, but I don't think this
Yeah.
is the first or the last. I think we're in a brave new frontier and we have to be aware. Like, I think that it's actually very fascinating the porn star liked that because it might just be his real interest in how people couple together. I mean, if you think
Well,
about it, if he's assigned to
my
do it,
my
it's
read on
different.
him in the end, my read on him wasn't that he was that bright. He was a
Okay,
fast talker. You know,
nice.
he was like a slick Rick, fast talker person, but not necessarily that bright. Um, my take was that he probably has always been looking for a free ride in life. So
Got it.
he was seeing this
Ah,
like latching on as, hey, how do I get on the money train here and just hang
sure.
out? And no pun intended, by the way. How do I
That's
hang out?
fine. Not that,
Okay.
not the train, not getting on the train. Yeah.
No, but
Well, no.
hanging out for money.
Well, but I mean, so let's think about it. I love that you brought that up because let's just be honest. There are people whose entire welfare in life is being attractive and entertaining and hospitable. Look at who gets hired as hostesses at restaurants. I don't mean it rude, but I mean, there is a lot to be said for being a an attractive, well-spoken person. You can max out charisma and attractiveness to get a lot of what you want in life. Like that should be known to most people. I mean,
Right. Right.
and I guess I'm saying something. I mean, there's some dark psychology. It's like not really. Like if you understand anything and you follow any Henderson or Dobransky or Fox or Peterson, it's like, oh, okay, so people find certain things attractive, certain things unattractive, and if you show confidence, you get and you act like you should be somewhere, then you're met that way. I mean, so I would there's probably a different level with someone who's an adult film star of just kind of feeling like they
Yeah.
or should be there. I mean, it's kind of probably yeah. I've known entertainment industry people too. There's a certain attitude that's cultivated, but I think that goes right along with the attention addiction. I mean,
By the
there's
way, I
nothing
should say
right.
where this was. This
Yeah,
was Los Angeles.
sure.
Obviously this was Los Angeles. That's that's the kind of environment we're talking about. Um, I haven't been back to Los Angeles in many years. It's not my place at
Okay.
all. But
Yeah,
it was Sunset Boulevard. The clubs on Sunset Boulevard. So just to give a
sure.
little background to where this was, then it might
Yeah,
make more
yeah.
sense. It's not like I walked into a Trader Joe's and this person
No, I
was
didn't
there.
think you went to Trader Joe's and met a porno star. I mean, I'm sure they go there to get the food because it's probably healthier, at least depending on what you get. But no, I mean, there's a lot of people who just want to cling on to stuff and want to be the messenger, right? Like you look at a lot of people and it's like,
Yeah.
man, I just want to talk to people and help people, man. I did you know I'm a people person? I've never met a stranger. Did you know that you can talk to people and help them? I'm like, yeah, yeah, I kind of do that. Yeah, for a living. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you meet people
Hmm.
like that. It's like they say something like they're the person who thought of something like, hey, sometimes just talking stuff out makes you feel better. Oh,
I
does it? I didn't know
I
that.
call those I call those the Tony Robbinses.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, I get
like
it. I almost find
latching
them to
on
be,
to other
yeah.
people's ideas and then repackaging them and this sort of thing, without much thinking.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
So,
yes,
well,
go for it.
well, let's get into some things here.
Let's do it.
You said a lot of words that would be worth maybe defining more. Um, you said a lot of
Yes,
words. Charisma
I
was
did.
one.
As is okay.
Attention, is the topic, and I, I wanted
Yes.
to I wanted to first speak to charisma since we're talking about a marketplace and we're talking about people who capitalize and charge others for what amounts to them not even being there,
Yeah.
to their image, their IP of themselves, and this sort of thing. And when I think of the word charisma, that's a synonym in my mind to Freud's concept of libido, or
Yes.
to the concept we talk about a lot, which is just passion. The word passion, I think, is the master word for all these other synonyms like charisma. And the word,
Yeah.
if think about the word passion, right? And this will relate to dating, attraction, people with their strange predilections for what they like viewing, their nefarious, strange things that they like. Um, but the word passion can only be used in two ways, if you think about it. And we
Yeah.
all know that it's used in terms of love, or specifically desire or lust. That's obvious. But what
Yeah.
we don't think of as often is a more global use of the word in various other ways, like crimes of passion are about a death. The
Yes.
passion of the Christ was not about romance; it was about a death.
Right.
The passion plays were about a death.
Yep.
My life's passion is about the thing I'm here to do on earth.
Yes.
My passion project for an artist is the best thing they've ever done and the thing they are giving their quote heart and soul to and all their money
Right.
to. So the word passion can only be used in two ways. I mean, find some other way and let me know if you can think of one. But it can only be used in terms of sex and its connection to love. And then,
Sure.
secondly, in terms of life and death, the continuum between life and death, right?
Yes.
The
I
end of a
follow
life,
you.
one may die, in the agony and passion of the death experience. Um, One passionately comes to life in the first place when one is born on their first day of life.
Yes.
Um, and then in between, there is what makes us excited to be alive. What is the reason we are put here on earth? So when I think of the
Right.
word charisma, charisma is an impassioned presence of a
Yeah.
person that could
Yes.
be contagious, and it could spread to others, and it is contagious in the sense that it's the energy of life itself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
I
looked
like
at the
that.
idea of genes, mutations, Darwin, evolution, are genes being passed on, and the energy of life and the uniqueness of an individual's life being passed on through generations.
Right.
It's passion that does that. So,
Yeah, well, I would put it this way. I mean, that's the so here's what I'll say. The good ending, or the good beginning actually, for a couple is both people are passionate together for each other romantically. And even, by the way, I love that definition. I mean, so what you have is Christ's passion, so his passion for humanity, his love for us, leading him to lay down his life. So you've got that agape love, the all-encompassing love scripture talks about. You have life's mission, your passion on a more career level. You have passion on romance. You could have it for your kids, for your and that's like the one for your kids. We could say that's a very humans have a watered down version of that divine love. So you could have it for something that's like your progeny. You can have it for a mate, even a friend, and you can have it for your life's mission. So that's passion how I see it. And that's what actually we're trying to ramp up in a lot of clients. We can talk more about that. Uh but also when we think about charisma, I would say, well, so that's basically, I like how you put that. That's kind of a passion for yourself. So the good outcome is passion bidirectional from a man to woman, a woman to man, whatever, however you want to say it, to whatever the couple is. But then you've got the dark side, and this is where the narcissism element comes in that people talk about so much. Is you've got someone who's charismatic, who says the right stuff, and all along was really just riding the wave of seduction, who has their genes, has their kids, and then it's like, well, had the kids. What are you gonna do now if I'm not the best dad? Like, oh well, like you can call my bluff. We could divorce. You could sue me for child support. Like, there's enough going on with dark triad people who do short term mating that we know charisma can be used to basically garner affection. And that's kind of like a you could call it like the cheapened version of passion, right? The appearance of passion. So people need to watch out for that. Um, that would be my
Well,
view on that. And there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of charisma that leads to just the other person getting what they want.
well, I always use the triune brain model to,
Right.
get my head on straight on what's causing what. So if we're talking about passion, that is definable as being something existing in the reptilian brain because
Sure.
it's instinct based. Um, Darwin and evolution are about the instincts, the
Right.
automatic behaviors that drive us to survive long enough to reproduce, right? So that's the
Yes.
instincts. And the reptilian brain is about the instincts. It's not about character. It's not about goodness. It's not about boundaries and coupling in a committed relationship or ethics or beneficence. It's not about any of that. It's just about the pleasure of being alive.
Yeah. Well, I like that. That's got to be tempered. So that's a good segue because basically my conjecture here is if you're going to talk, this is good for everybody who's new, who joined us a few minutes ago. If you're going to talk about pornography addiction, we need to talk about attention addiction. It is an addiction to need a lot of approval and likes on your pictures. And it's an addiction if you shape the way you pose your body and your body parts at the camera to get men's attention. The same way with men, it's an addiction to pornography. That one's simple to talk about. Like, not really, but you see something, you click it, rinse, repeat. But I'm not hearing enough about, besides from Jonathan Haidt's work in Anxious Generation, the shaping of young women to think that it's normal to desire hundreds or if not thousands of people clicking on your pictures, liking them, and commenting on them. And so, if we want to
What if
talk about
what if I
reptilian
said it
brain
is?
impulses,
What if I
so
played devil's advocate
I
and
like that.
disagreed with you? I agree with you because I like you and I know you, but what if I played devil's advocate? Um,
I like
Instead
that.
of us staying in the domain of sociology arguments,
Sure.
which go nowhere, which always go
Okay.
nowhere, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you're purposely doing something here, but back to the instincts that we were talking about, and without having to go into human. I think I'm causing the dog to freak out here. Let me
To
close
have
this
dog
window.
dog courtship rituals. No,
Yes,
I think
yeah.
that's
The
a good.
the
I just go
the
ahead.
the dog thinks I'm a stranger, by way of the
Sure.
window. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
no, yeah, what I was going to say is if I I describe this in the context of being a theorist of human courtship, but it doesn't have to be only in that domain.
Sure.
Um, but the very first step of courtship is where the two individuals get each other's attention. It's the
Yes.
very first step. There's nothing that's going to come after that if they don't get each other's attention at the beginning. And
Agreed.
then if you think about David Buss and evolutionary psychology in general and all the research on
Mm-hmm.
the male instinctual tendency toward that which is visual, like
Yes.
you may have heard of the research in which males and females are both injected with testosterone, and then
Mm-hmm.
the visual acuity is measured thereafter, and it goes up for both.
Yes.
Whether you're
Yes.
male or you're female, you get this visual, strategic visual boost of
Yeah.
ability, and I think that's fascinating. Of course, the evolutionary psychologists would say, well, that's because the males with the stronger bodies, more muscular bodies, were the hunters and killers, so they had to have visual be number one to be able to hunt, to be able to find the prey, and things
Sure.
like this.
What would you say
Um,
to that?
I'd say
Would you agree?
it sounds true.
Yeah, it does to
It
me.
I mean it sounds logical to me for sure. There's
Right.
no way to prove it, but it does indeed sound logical. And then how does this idea of the visual in males? Oh, also
Mm-hmm.
Simon Baron Cohen with the hyper masculine theory of autism. You know
Yes.
that autism is like being super masculine in
Yep.
a sense. And why
Right.
is it more in males than females? And what is it exactly? And it's very rigid, logical. It's constructing things, it's playing with Legos, it's building buildings, it's analytical, mathematical, and logical. And that's interesting
It is.
because it's visual in a sense there. So if back to porn and back to attention,
Sure.
I like and see it repeat for me every time I look at a problem or a social malaise that's going on.
Yeah.
I if I see it through the eyes of males are visual and females are sensate, females are
Okay.
sensual. Males are visual, females are sensual. It tends to like be a good razor for
Mm-hmm.
like understanding things better. Like why have we converted so much to video, everything? Why isn't it just writing? I had a friend tell me the other day, he goes, you know, Paul, sometimes I wonder if there are just too many writers, just out of the blue. And I'm like,
Okay.
huh, interesting. Yeah, maybe so. Well, maybe there are too many videographers now too. But it's interesting that males are driven passionately, sexually, for sure sexually, by that which is visual, at least at the beginning of relating. And
Yeah.
females are driven by that which is sensate, that which is
Okay.
sensory. I just
Okay.
saw a on a on my kids' YouTube. There's this chess show, and they were making jokes for adults that kids would never get, you know, so that the adults could maybe partake as well and watch. And
Sure.
there were two chess pieces, and they were in bed, and they were talking about being romantic in
Okay.
the form of doing some kind of chess move, right? And
Yeah.
then the queen clicks the light, and the lights go out.
Okay.
And I was thinking, how many people only have sex with the lights out or prefer to have sex with the lights out versus the lights on? And how many of them are female and how many are male? I wonder.
Dangerous question.
Do you see what I'm saying there?
One hundo.
Because it's one is visual and one is only sensate,
Right.
not
Yeah.
visual. The lights are out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never
I agree
stopped to
with
think
you.
about that question. I mean, that's kind of a trope. Um, you know that's how 50 years ago people would have sex. They'd shut the lights out and then they'd have sex. But what does having the lights out have to do with it? And who prefers that and why? Geraldine says, straight up, not me.
I mean, I would, if you want, yeah, if you want an answer on that, I think part of that is like focusing more on the sensation. Is that what we're driving at here? Because I think that's a really good example of that, right? Like clearly it's not. There goes the mic again. Clearly it's not visual. Like I mean,
Well, I
it's.
guess what I'm not being clear about, to tie back to
I think
attention
you're
and
being pretty
female
clear.
attention and John
Okay.
Haidt, it if males, at least romantically, if heterosexual males are visual, and the
Yeah.
very first step of courtship is they notice the symmetry of the
Sure.
beautiful female, and
Uh
it's
huh.
not just because she's beautiful, it's that the beauty is symmetrical, the symmetry implies health, it implies
Right.
genetic robustness. So the
Hundred
reason our
percent.
instincts are responding is
Yeah.
because the person is physically healthy and therefore genetically robust, which is the purpose or one of the drives of the genes here.
Yeah.
So if the male is visual, then the female, who is generally on a bell curve sensate by preference, except for Geraldine. Little joke there, Geraldine. Then the female who wants to entice the male would want to be visual, or she would have to learn how to be visual to display visually her
Yeah,
health.
people give what the other person wants in exchange to get what they want. If it's that's a brutal. I'm being brutalist. I'm being very brusque in
Which is
my.
marketing. I mean, it's marketing. It's sales and marketing there.
Yeah, that's what people
It's
do.
give the customer what they want,
Give them
and
what
you will
they. Yeah,
profit.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, agreed. I mean, yes, I so look, nobody so women don't want to be valued. Attractive women, you'll hear things like I'm not just going to sit there and look pretty. I don't want to just be another pretty face. I don't want to be blank pretty, whatever. Like they don't people don't want to be just commodified as beautiful. And then you hear men say, "Well, I wish I'd be objectified," if they think they're ugly or they've never been treated that way, right? Because grass is always greener. Then you hear women like I'd like to provide or I'd like to be seen as worthwhile for what I give. And it's like, well, so um you have to put some effort into that stat or buck the curve and show that you can provide it. I mean, for both, for men and women. I mean, so to answer your question, because I don't want to let myself off the hook, you said, what if you play devil's advocate and said, what if that's baseline that you want as many eyes as you can get if you're a woman and you want as much access to free sex as a male? Well, so congrats, we found the intersection point that I've been harping on between evolutionary psychology and Christian theology of basically the drives, the unfettered drives of the id, okay, are basically
Yeah.
just sin nature. Like that's basically what it is. It's like, okay, I'm just going to keep getting what I want. I'm going to keep doing what I want that's innate to me without concern for anything else. I mean, as a baby, an infant, you need that to survive. It's not pathologized then. But as an adult, my gosh, it is. So, because you're not offering anything, and there is now more of a view that even if you're not offering anything, you're valid and you deserve respect. But that's still very much of society says you need to at least contribute something. So, I mean, I would say, well, what if that is normal? Yeah, basically, you've given people who aren't people have access to do what they want with their instincts on a grand global scale. That's the answer. I mean, that's the description. It's not the prescription though.
Ah,
There's a difference
yeah.
there. So that's and we were going somewhere. You were going to talk about you were talking about the display of the women display marketing. I mean, no one wants to be just one thing typically. That's it's very interesting to me. I mean, and there's a bucking of that. Like you're supposed to want like describe people like them for more than just a thing. It gets very deep. I'll toss it back to you because I could say some stuff now that I'm not going to. To be quite blunt, because this goes. You're supposed to avoid saying the obvious thing now in a lot of ways.
Okay. Yeah. Well, but what comes to mind is what would we want for people to be the endpoint of
Mm.
this talk? Like, how would we want to improve something here? If teen girls are the most impaired demographic by social media because they, as we've explored here, like attention, not for nefarious, low character reasons, but for
Right.
natural evolutionary reasons that females ought to enjoy attention because attention wouldn't be exactly love, but it would be the potential for love.
Yes. Yes.
So if
Yes. A
so in
thousand times.
your modern Cleopatra, who would wish for 10,000 men's um you know hours of their time or something, or their attention, they couldn't she couldn't sleep with every single one of them, although
Yeah.
there are these particular uh video people who try to do that. um
1,012 hours, man. That's the record.
yeah.
Bonnie
uh
Blue.
okay, I did not know that, and I wish I
Telling
didn't
you.
now.
Well, I'm sorry. I
But
don't.
yeah,
I don't. I
I
write. I
really,
report the news.
but but if this is
Okay.
true, that there's a natural instinct to which, I guess you could say, instincts are unquenchable. They're dopamine circuitry. They're going to go on and on and on repetitively
Right.
pursuing what they do unless there's a feedback loop that limits them in some way. But this concept of 10,000 men's attentions, um, that means 10,000 chances at love. It's
Yeah.
10,000 meet cutes, 10,000 romantic comedies getting
I
started,
mean, yeah. If it's not sure with the
right?
guy, but that's the thing. If it's
Got
the
another
guy that
dog problem.
you want the guy. That's fine. You want it to be the guy that you want to be with, and a lot of them aren't. It's going to be what's a customer. You want it to be that guy. Yes, I agree with that.
Yes.
But that's not who it is a lot of the time. It's not the person that they find to be worthwhile and the one. It's not Mr. Darcy, for God's sake, in a lot of ways. Like, that's the Pride and Prejudice archetype. It's guy who is saying, I there's no mystery, right? He's seen her oftentimes bare. If you want to get really into this, he's seen her lay out
Huh.
her bareness. There is no
Really?
mystery, and he is offering no mysterious male energy. He's clicking a monthly payment button. So it is a
Huh.
complete letdown of his
Okay.
presence, in my opinion. If
So,
there's a customer to an OnlyFans,
so
that's
you bring up mysteriousness, and
yes,
that's it. That's interesting because although we're not strictly talking just about human courtship tonight or love, the the idea of there being steps to courtship has always made sense to me, because that's true of the animal kingdom
yeah,
and other kingdoms. Um, that if we march through human courtship, the very first step we've observed already tonight is that females visually displaying what has been called beauty, but really is a synonym for symmetry, and
sure,
symmetry is a synonym for genetic robustness and health, right? So that's the female
yes,
first step of courtship. That's her first offering, is to appear, just physically appear in a social venue, um,
yes,
appearing healthy. Well, what is the male to do then? Is he supposed to look good physically? No. It turns out that that can matter, of course, but that's not the response to this female beauty. It's
yes,
mysteriousness. Mysteriousness is the male response. and there are a lot of reasons why that's the case. But my easiest way to explain it is that males need to be mysterious as their very first response to females in the environment, who are
Hmm.
available. It's because of the Electra complex, or the female Oedipus.
Right.
When a little girl falls in love with her daddy in her youth, and everything is amazing about him, and he mysteriously can buy her gifts, he mysteriously goes to his job, he does mysterious things she does not know about.
Ah,
um,
yes. Very well
at
put.
least at a certain age, it's all
Yeah.
mysterious about him, and he mysteriously goes to bed in the bedroom with mommy without me. And what happens there? I don't know. It's all a mystery. So, so one of the ways of summing up the attachments of our youngest years that get revivified in adolescence and adulthood when we reattach to peers that
Right.
we could date and marry and mate with,
Yes.
is that for the female, this Electra complex matters. The female Oedipus, as it's been called, matters. And
Right.
the most prominent feature of the father is he's a giant, and he does all these mysterious things, and he has mysterious powers.
Right.
And he's humorous too. And humor
Yeah.
is based on mystery, on mysteriousness.
Yep.
You know, you don't know what the punchline's going to be until you reach the punchline.
Yes.
So mystery is the very first step for males in human courtship. And what is that? And why does it matter in terms of what we're talking about regarding people craving attention and what's going on Twitter and OnlyFans and porn and things like this? Um, it's that there is no formula for how could you be mysterious. I mean,
Right.
because if you memorized a bunch of lines or something like this, or you dressed like a circus clown or whatever it is
Ah,
you did, it may fall flat on its face. So there's no formula for mystery, but there is a
right.
way to detect whether it is being perceived as mysterious, and
Okay.
that is being asked questions. If somebody is asking you questions, if you're the male and there is a female and she's asking you questions about yourself, what makes you tick? What do you care about? What do you like? Then you're being mysterious.
Yes.
If you're not being asked questions anymore, the person doesn't care to know you, then you're not being mysterious.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that you can pack into that and say, well, um, what are we teaching young boys and men? I mean, so the young boy does not need to be um, mysterious to his mother for a multitude of reasons, and she prefers him not to be, right? So then you could go into the devouring mother archetype. I'm not, I mean, I've heard some about that.
Right.
I would say the
Beowulf,
all encompassing. Yeah,
Grendel's mother, the
exactly.
first monster, the first monster in the modern world's literature is
Right.
female.
So
Grendel's mother.
basically, you have to ask, okay, what is culture saying about young men and boys and what they need to be? Because basically, if you look to that, then you can ask, how will they do in dating? And I would say, well, they're not being taught really that well now, or they haven't been for a while. I think there've been glimmers of hope, and there still are. I would say when you look at the idea now that young boys and men need to be taught uh, to be confident, and some of the men's psychology stuff, to give a prop to you and our colleagues. That's wonderful. I mean, throughout history, it's been a development of competence. And so when you and I were on the phone, I was like, well, I really enjoyed in high school being told, wow, that was a great essay. Or, Jeremy, you really get this subject. Or we really enjoy your work here in this class and hope that you study this more in college, like being given an attaboy. I mean, there's a term for it for a reason, and being taught to
Yeah.
value your skill. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as a male, I feel like a sense of mystery coming from I have this skill, and maybe I'll give you a show of it now, like a peacocking or
Right.
something. But I have more of that where that came from, and because I'm wise at social encounters, I'm not going to say everything about myself right away. Why would I do that? Why would I? Because that takes time. A, B, it makes you monopolize all the time, and it takes the ability for other
Right.
people to talk. I mean, there's so many reasons. So basically, mystery seems to be more of an awareness, a social awareness, there, a coolness that people have to be taught and they have to cultivate. You can't teach coolness to an extent. People just get it easier than others. I would put it
Ah,
that way.
well, I believe it or not, I have a definition of coolness.
Yes, I know you do. That was one many moons ago that we talked about, I think. So I'm
It
teeing it up.
was many moons ago, but basically, I think coolness amounts to observing ego ability,
Yes, yes,
which would be
yes.
similar to theory of mind or mindfulness. Being
Yeah,
mindful is what makes you cool,
yeah.
because
No, I.
cool people are they're awake and aware of what's going on around them. They're open, receptive to what you have to say, describing yourself,
Yes, yes,
and they're not impulsive, they're not irritable, they're not unhappy, and they're present.
yes,
So yeah,
yes. No, I love that. I mean, but if you think about how people now have so much um distraction illness, almost you could call it. I mean, it's
yeah,
there's a real issue with being present, and there's so men, I think something that this is I like this, okay? Young women need to be taught to be very careful who they show all of their mystery and their attractiveness to, because you don't want that used by someone who's a poor suitor. Young men need to be taught to be careful with who they show their provisional skills to, or they could be used for their money and their resources. So you have to, and this
ah,
is not, by the way, this is an old concept. By the way, like I'm saying it in a
okay,
way, isn't it? Don't you think the idea that you have to teach men, hey, don't let someone bat their eyes and take advantage of you, and women, you have to say, hey, don't let that guy sweet talk you into taking your clothes off when you don't really want to be with him in that moment. I feel like I like the way I said that, but I also think there's a lot of timeless wisdom to that too. To look at what does society say that you offer, and how quickly can you be parted from it if you are unwise. There's
hmm.
something to that, and I feel like that's our mission: is how we're helping people to recognize how are you developing your gifts and being prudent in how you administer them and to whom you give them.
Well, I think I think what you're speaking to here is at the core of any personal growth material or new ideas that people enjoy, makes them feel good and they feel like they grow. If there's narcissism baked in, then it's exactly the opposite of what you were looking for.
Ooh,
And
very good.
I think the concept of personal narcissism and then coupled narcissism or narcissistic abuse, I think these are the two fundamental things to understand before you proceed into any knowledge base about building yourself up. Because otherwise, I mean, you're being deceived. I mean, a lot of the things you were talking about, like, kind of, got my ire up a bit when you were talking about people asking about how much do you make. Like, maybe males should not reveal how much they make. And I know
Okay.
females might say, why isn't it bad for me to reveal how much I make as a
Uh huh.
female? And the jury's in on that. It's
Yeah.
males don't care. Males don't care how much you make. They really don't. On the bell curve at the mean and the median, they don't care.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's not what impassions them about you. So when I see
Right.
all these very wonderfully successful females, which is great,
Yeah.
um, displaying their yachts, their cars, their wealth on TikToks and social media and things like this, and some of them might say, "Hey, don't you want some of this?" If they're talking to males, then no, we don't. It's not. I mean, except for a select few. Um, Maybe the guys sitting on their couch playing video games that you were talking about earlier. Maybe that's
Sure.
attractive to them, but the mean of males, heterosexual males, are not going to be attracted to the female's wealth. They're not. Whereas it's very clear that in all the dating sites, Tinder, Bumble, Match.com, all of them, Hinge,
Right.
if the man doesn't make a certain amount of money, it doesn't matter how good looking he is just not a candidate. So there's a
So
financial money divide between the genders in terms of, hey, can I get your attention based on how much money I make? There's a gender divide there,
yeah.
and there's a
Yeah.
difference in attractiveness
Yes.
between the genders surrounding this, clearly.
Yeah.
Poseidon. In fact, I like talking about Poseidon a lot. I always wondered, why is Poseidon the god of both the sea and horses? I mean,
Yes.
totally so random, so random. Why is he not the god of, like, napkins and goats, or like two random unrelated things? Well, what's similar between horses and seafaring to the ancient Greeks? They're the two
Uh
ways of commerce.
Absolutely. Yes.
They're the
Yes.
two ways of commerce, right? So
Yes.
Poseidon is not a sea god. Poseidon is a wealth god.
Right.
In most
Absolutely.
specifically, he's a god of commerce. And
Yes.
so if Poseidon as a male instinct is attractive to females, this would be the guy that has a boat. And it's not the fact he has a boat that's cool, like you're going to go fishing on that boat. It's the
Right.
fact he has that much money, he can waste it on having a boat,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, yes, something about evolutionary psychology, like that's the wedding ring. Like there has to be something where you can use a conspicuous amount of money, but it can't be for something that's like practical. You have to show that you can burn it. I get what you're saying. I get fully. I mean, there's always a healthy amount of that with love. I would say not to. I'm not debating there. This is one of the weird things that people have to look at, and they have to reconcile it. I'm not the one. I'm not going to be the. I'm not going to argue on this point or die on this hill. It's not worth it enough to me. Um, but there are broke. There are guys with like no money who are attractive and charismatic who can do a one night stand, and somebody could get locked with that guy and make the decision if they want to keep the kid or not. There's a lot of interesting stories of that kind of thing. And maybe it's when women are younger, right? Or maybe it's when someone is more open to a guy who can't provision, but they're the guy who is suave but has no provisioning, the kind of the rake character, right? Rake. There is some
Right.
sort of a space for that. And I'm not advocating it. I don't want people to take that example. But reconciling that with the model that I mean that's it's not optimal that someone can't provision and just put it that way, because then the person has to decide how they go on just maintaining their life, and meaning the woman who's with a character like that, like, my gosh, what do I do at that point? And it's a subject of ridicule. Anyway,
Well,
very rich.
huh. Okay. Well, you get into some territory there. Ridicule.
Uh huh.
Do you have any thoughts on the concept of what is a taboo? How do you
Okay.
define a taboo? A taboo, and if we were to talk about the concept of it's a derogatory term. It could be used
Yes.
toward females or males, but it's the word slut.
Right. Yes.
What is a slut? Female or male?
Oh,
I've heard
someone
of a lot
who.
of males being called a man S,
Yes. Yes.
but
Or man
why
W.
like Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
You know, like almost any Pete Davidson Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
He's a male, he's a man H or a man W or
Right.
a
Right.
man S. Um,
Well, we would say it's someone who doesn't for money, right? Engage in, they do it for the love of the game or for their own pleasure, engages in many trysts or romantic escapades. That's how I would say it. It's
okay,
someone who is a relationship rebounder continually. Someone who starts many different relationships, usually short term. It's very sexually promiscuous. You could just say that. Someone who
okay.
is sexually promiscuous.
You know, typically it's defined as sexually promiscuous.
Bingo.
Michael
Yes.
from I believe Michael from Australia defines taboo as custom
Yes.
prohibiting or restricting a particular practice for or forbidding
Forbidding.
association with a particular person, place, or
Yeah.
thing. Any taboos have developed.
Yes.
Well, it goes on and on. Um, I, for
Yeah. It got
myself,
cut off.
I define taboo as being that which goes against human nature.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that which goes against human
Sure.
nature, which means
Yeah.
that which goes against instincts,
Yeah. Oh, wow. So that could get into a lot of disturbing behaviors. Yes. Yes, yes.
right?
Yep. Sure.
So,
I love
so
it.
if you have, you know, if you have, say there are survival instincts that are common to, you know, both sexes.
Yep.
Loud noise makes you jump.
Yep.
Threatening animal approaching you makes you climb a tree or run away. Fight or flight, things like this. You know, they're common to both sexes. But um, what about the concept of a taboo being violating the natural instincts? And what if we're talking about female instincts, feminine instincts, or
Okay.
masculine instincts? And what if we're talking about um, a male who does not pro- provide or protect, a male who doesn't protect his family,
A
a
coward.
man who runs away from the family? What do they call it? A deadbeat dad.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you would call
A,
that that. Yeah.
a,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
man who a man who backs down from a noble cause that he is right
Yes.
in the matter. Um, a coward.
Yeah. Yeah. All of
So
that.
so do you see how all of those are taboos? Taboos being violated. See?
Right.
By way
Well,
of
being cuckolded is a
violating the
taboo.
normal natural instinct.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I think, yeah, when you're as a provider, right? When you're, well, it gets into the instincts, like you said, of providing, protecting, fighting, and winning. You covered both of those. Emotional control. Well, let's talk about. Oh, here's another one. The physically abusive husband, the wife beater. So you've got the deadbeat, and then you've got the wife beater, who it's like, well, he's actually not containing his emotions and taking that more emotionally regulated approach. He's acting out of anger in an abusive way. So that's a mismanagement of anger, right? And so those are all really good little brief snippets of how it goes wrong. Yeah,
Right.
and I mean the old term cuckold. I mean, if a man is being essentially robbed of paternity and unable to be certain that the kids that he's providing and protecting for are his, that's considered very taboo. At least it was to talk about, and it's considered suboptimal, sort of a joke. I mean, there's a lot of allusions to it in Shakespeare. I mean, it's something
It's
ancient.
unnatural.
It's right, and it's
Oh,
kind of
well,
considered someone got one over on you. You know, it's
right.
kind of yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think there's I don't have it on the top of mind to quote, but I believe Macbeth has a lot of information about this
Ooh,
from
okay,
literature, from Shakespeare. Yeah. Like cuckoldry and being a male or a female of low character and so forth. And Geraldine says slut is a very old word and nothing like it is used now. So that's interesting. What if I were to tell you that if symmetry exists in science and psychology, and if pop culture and sociology tend to describe a female version of this as being one who is too libertine with sharing her body,
okay.
that a male version of this would be a male who spreads his money around too liberally without thinking.
Ah, yes.
Not
Okay.
not not a male who sleeps around too much. A male who gives away his providing and protecting too liberally
I can see that being a
without
definition.
reward.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, because he's essentially not providing for his family and setting them up, not protecting them from
Oh, even if
potential
he were a
ruin.
single man, if
Right.
he were a single man and he were easily taken for a ride, dispensing his resources to
Okay.
anyone and everyone, that's the same spirit of social disapproval that we're talking about in terms of what is a taboo. If being a slut
Yes.
is that's a taboo, the reason one would be defined as such, female or male, would be you have broken some kind of um, normalcy, benchmark of
Yeah.
normalcy in the culture, and I would say in this sense in the psychology and biology. Violating biology and
Okay.
psychology is what is taboo. It's what makes
Right.
something taboo.
Right. So you have like the man child, the person who never grows up and is like a comic caricature of masculinity of, I can't make a phone call because I have anxiety about what to say when someone picks up. I mean, I'm not making a joke. There's people who say that. The person who does not have the gumption. I mean, gumption is a word that sounds so antiquated, but I mean, there's a need for gumption, for
Yeah.
fire in the belly, for motivation in men. That I mean, you have to excite them. You have to excite young men if they aren't, and you have to say, you have gifts and competencies, and you can use them. So I think parents go too far in two ways. They go too far in saying everything you do is great, and they go too far in saying nothing you do amounts to anything, and life is grueling and terrible. It's like, hold up there, partner, on both counts. Like, be able to say, hey, you're not perfect, but you have great things that'll help you to build a legacy. Okay. So I think with men, people don't know how to raise them the same way some people didn't know how to raise women in the past. Like, what do I do with a woman who wants to work? Or, I mean, the whole movie Brave about the Disney princess who wants to be a warrior. It's like, oh no, what do we do with this? Well, I think we're kind of there societally with men. Like, oh no, what do we do? Well, we have to determine, what are you hearing about what men need to be taught? What do you know about what people wanted men from ancient history? And it's still relevant now, right? We're not talking about Viking competitions. except at the Irish festivals or whatever. We're talking about, winning, having mystery, knowing how to have a conversation without sounding like you're talking to a therapist. I think one of the most valuable things that we can do as mental health professionals is remind people everyone's not your therapist. You actually shouldn't go around talking to people you want to date like they're your therapist. I'm kind of appalled at how much therapists have decided, oh, well, what we need to do is tell people that society is like one big therapy office and that's how you talk to your partner. That's tone deaf for men. That's not how men need to talk to women, especially when they first meet them. And I don't know that there's anyone out
Mm.
there really saying that besides us and about two other people. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it to be to be simple about it, if you if you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, then you're not mysterious as a male. If you're
That was
giving
it.
your most intimate thoughts
Yep.
out front, you're not being mysterious.
That's the mic drop moment. That's it. You nailed it.
If you're so reserved though that you don't even talk and you just
Yes.
look, you're also not mysterious because you're a weirdo.
Right.
You're a creepo. You're a creepo, weirdo guy
Yes.
who doesn't
Nailed
talk,
it.
right?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have to dance, to be attractive as a male, you have to dance around a little bit in conversation
Yep.
and not necessarily get to a point and truly not, you know, give all your details up front.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, Geraldine.
it does take practice. I mean, and men have to practice it boldly. Women have to decide. And this is something I was on I won't say the site in case this site throttles you for mentioning the name of it, but it was the one that a certain man by the first name Elon owns. I was in a space and it was for like hours and we were talking about, I told you this a few days ago, and it was about, you know, good good expectations versus really wild over expecting things.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, yeah.
self-centered expectations. So it's like, well, smart women know to look for indicators of competency, of ambition, of passion. There's that word again, that the male is going to be successful. And they spot that. And even if the guy doesn't have everything right now, they play the waiting game with him, help him out, and they build something. I mean, that's what smart women do. There's not they are wise and discerning on what to look for. And maybe whereas someone who was really focused on whatever the latest TikTok or Instagram phrasing was of what the male needs to do, they say, "Oh, this guy's not good. He's not for me. Nope, pass next." And let's say another woman sees like, "Oh, maybe this guy is a little socially off, but well, he's really passionate about this thing, and he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He's pretty kind. I'll give it a shot." And then fast forward, that couple gets married, and they have a beautiful home and maybe a kid or two, and the other person who just keeps swiping left and is like, "Nah, that guy's terrible. Oh, he's not good enough for me." End up single. It is what it is. You play that game where you're very narrow. You get narrow options. I think we have men and women both get
Mm.
way too in that now. So, but there's different fueling sources for that. The church has to tell Christians to be realistic about dating. I'm sorry. We're doing a very bad job of it. The church does not get into the relationship making world as much as the relationship sustaining world of counseling,
Ah,
to their
yeah.
dismay.
Well,
Mark my words,
well,
in five
nobody
years,
has ever gotten into that. No, no
not until the
demographic
90s.
group. I,
Yeah.
I mean, except for the hodgepodge, collection of people that call themselves matchmakers, for which there is no unified
Yeah.
model,
Well, agreed.
or
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever taught that
Oops.
until
Yeah.
the
Well,
'90s. Nobody even researched it.
it's
So,
going to be big.
yeah.
My prediction, there's going to be a huge move to talk about the foundations of a good relationship coming up because enough people are either going to get divorced or not get married. I mean, we're seeing it in real time. you can't expect, and you don't blame God like, God's going to send me the man that talks just the way that I envision him doing it. That's not God. That's you. You invented that, and then you put it on God. I see it a lot now. I see that on posts. I see that kind of attitude.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's me. And again, that is natural. Me
Yeah.
is natural. It's certainly not exceptional, and it's not supernatural. It is lowbrow natural. So you have to decide to ascend beyond that. Pray for wisdom if you're Christian. But the real danger is mixing massive expectations and narcissism with faith, because you're really bound to be able to justify anything with that. We've seen that in throughout history, but
Oh, yeah. Well,
now we've
that
seen
would be like giving
negative.
yourself superhero powers to,
Yeah,
win the lotto or get what you
yeah,
want. Yeah,
yeah.
I could see that.
And it's kind of
Well,
what. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I see I see more and more narcissism out there in people, and therefore more and more disappointment instead of curiosity
Sure, agreed.
about other people, about what makes them tick, what they like, what feels normal for them.
So yes,
So yeah, yeah.
bringing that
So
back, this is great. Bringing that back to the
yeah,
social media and pornography thing, I think
yeah,
that really gets into what people have been accustomed to. Like for males in porn, it's, well, this is the attention span. Get what you need, look at it. It's, we're being trained to be very focused on the transaction and
hmm,
the brief
yeah,
you dynamic there versus the people talk about romance. But I think your term romantic dynamic is really good, because we hear a lot about sexuality. What are we hearing about actual romance and cultivating it mindfully? We're not really. It's more how to get the guy or get the girl. It's like, well, how do you actually build romance, which is more suspense
yeah. I
based?
mean, there are all these the, the and also who poo of romance, normal, natural, human. And I think that why
I
that's
lost
true
you.
is the Brian model still there.
I'm losing you. It might be on my end. I can't tell.
Well, yeah. Well, Ben, let me jump here. The long and the short is,
There we
in
go.
terms of attention, um, instinctually, I would posit that females on the bell curve appreciate attention to their health, that they are
Right.
deemed healthy, that
Very good point.
they are judged healthy
Okay.
by each other, amongst each other, and by their mates, and by males. The physicality of the body is instinctually their sense of hated.
Uh oh. All right, everybody. Let's see what's going down here. I'm back.
Although there are males who weight lift and things like this and compete at that, I don't think by and large. In fact, talk to most marriageable women on the street about muscle head guys and muscle bound guys, and what do they think of those guys? But by and large, they're gonna be like, we don't like those guys,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's a testament to it not being a common, normal, natural instinct for males to be, preening and, the overly physical um, in their personal growth efforts, if you
Sure.
will. except for what you might be Adonis, which is, you know, uh, development of the body, um, and physical appearance, physical beauty in a male. It's not the
Yeah.
main thing they go for. The main thing males go for, you said near the beginning, which is if you're going to pay attention to me, don't pay attention to how tall I am or how good looking I am or any of these things. Pay attention to my career trajectory. That's what we love
Yeah.
generally as males. If we're going to get attention, if we get attention to our career, we love that.
So it's interesting you say that, yeah, because that's a really big way that people can show desire for getting to know a guy is what are you about? What is it that you enjoy? What is it that you want out of this world? And how can I look at that and support your mission? Again, look at the movie The Northman by Eggers, the same guy who did the Nosferatu. Look at how the two there's a witch character that the Northman meets, a third through or so, and she is very in alignment with him on quest, and they team up, and they're very complementary. So, and that's kind of an archetypal thing, is masculine and feminine coming together with the like goal of passion, meaning for life's quest. You call men have mission, women have purpose. Rearing children, I mean, it doesn't. That movie's not about that, but it's really about giving it all to that alignment of purpose. And we're at such cross purposes now. It's all like me, me,
Yeah,
me. That doesn't
yeah,
work well. Well, but if that movie's all
yeah.
about survival. So this is one big thing that I want to call out very particularly. You talk a lot about survival and reproduction, and I'm going to posit that so many of our problems now, and it being about how we're mismatching reproductively, is because there is no threat to survival. Not saying there needs to be, but people can sit around and dedicate their
Oh,
entire life to judging people and not mating because there's no urge to
yeah.
till the
I've
farm.
had that. I've had that in the back of my mind for quite some time now, but that's a really great way to word that.
Well,
That
thank you.
without, yes, without a threat to survival, why would males and females need each other?
Yeah. Well, it's scary because the
Or
answer is
or at
becoming that
least
they
the
don't.
possibility of it.
I agree. I think for the Christian and for someone who has a spiritual purpose, there's guardrails there to say, well, that's because that's the acceptable way to be physically intimate and have children and raise a family. That's just what you do that way. And I want that as the Christian, as the whatever. Um, there's tax incentives if you want to get base about it. I mean, there's a lot to it, but ultimately for people who just do not buy into it and are not all about don't have romance in them, really haven't cultivated it, because anyone can, it just becomes don't need it. I mean, but there was a whole generation, I mean, let's just be honest, where it was said the genders don't really need each other. I mean, it was kind of like all about, find yourself, you don't really need a partner, don't lean on that. I mean, my generation was certainly taught
Hmm.
that to a huge extent. I think Gen X was hit maybe the hardest. I don't think the Gen Z's really taught that much. I think they're basically just out there figuring it out. I don't know. It's weird because it's hard to think, in my opinion, how to
Yeah.
be taught that romance is less important than what millennials were taught. It would almost be like being told actively not to do anything. Because my generation was all about like figure yourself out way before you. But people fall into love. They fall into liking someone, and they don't listen to that. But a lot of people took that really seriously, and then you got career people who say, "Wow, I really, I didn't prioritize that at the front end." There's a lot out there now about that. So about people wishing that they'd maybe been open to dating earlier, things like that.
Huh.
So if you
Okay.
don't you
Yeah.
don't have to simulate a cataclysm. You don't have to view it, I have to survive and reproduce to fight off warring tribes. It doesn't have to be that urgent. But I'll tell you what, if you think I need to have a partner while I'm still young, while I'm still this, while I'm still that, whatever, insert reason, you will think differently than, there's never a time to ever settle on anything. I mean, there's a lot of people now, 40s, 50s, who are looking for that perfect person. It's like, all right, that's your right. Is it that smart? Eh. Let's let the audience decide. I mean, it's very interesting. People will talk about late 20s and 30 being like the wall. And it's like, I think there are people talking themselves up who are like mid 40s saying that they're really young and fun. I mean, there's not, the world now is just unbelievably uh judgmental about one another partner wise. As soon as you get into the online thing, I think as soon as you get that
Yeah.
brain
Oh
virus.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's ageism to be sure.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
The moral
and it doesn't matter.
violations.
It doesn't matter what your age. It's
Sure.
possible to find love at
I
any
agree.
age,
I agree
and
with that.
sexuality and all the above. So
I
yeah,
totally agree with that. My thing is, start cultivating a healthy attitude younger, because it's easier to do that young. That's all I mean by that. Is it's always easier to
yeah,
start when you can with healthy views. And don't let
right,
your single
right.
friends tell you how to think. That's like letting somebody who's never cooked meat before tell you how to cook a burger.
Makes sense.
Thank you. And I would say
All
that
right,
in session too.
man. Well, I would say I would like to hear that. um, well, well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining tonight. Yeah, I think at this time, let's start to wrap up.
Yeah.
Good, good. I think, yeah, I think we've come to some realizations about attention in females tends to be that which is visual.
Okay.
Males tend to want attention to that which is their career aspirations. They would rather have
Okay.
that than admiring their physique per se.
Okay.
And the fact that social media is so visual probably is a deciding force in why it is that young females have suffered the most from social media
Yes.
because of the
Yes.
nature of their instincts. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Very good. And I would say,
Well, cool. Well, thank you,
yeah,
Geraldine, for joining us. Michael, all you guys.
thank you. I love it.
A lot of
It's
people on
always
there, a lot of
great.
comments.
Yeah. I've been watching 'em. Thank you, Michael, for all the definitions on taboo. And thank you. I want to shout out one of my friends that I met on here, the collective. If he's still in there, collective psychology or something.
The
Let me look.
Psychology Collective.
Collective. Yeah, that guy. He's good. I think I met him on another live stream, or yeah. Instinct to be passionate about what is our derive our greatest weakness from as well. Like, yep, all right. Yeah, your greatest passion can be your greatest weakness. Good comment there. But this was fun. More to come. I'm excited for our continued
Yep,
exploits.
you got it. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk soon.